I never imagined that the person who would destroy my life completely would be the one who shared my blood, my childhood memories, and my parents' love. My sister Victoria did not just betray me. She systematically erased my entire existence and replaced it with her own lies. But what she did not know was that karma was watching, and I was about to become its instrument of justice. My name is Elena, and this is the story of how my own sister became my worst enemy, and how I made sure she paid the ultimate price for her betrayal. Growing up, Victoria and I were supposed to be best friends. We were only 2 years apart, shared the same bedroom until we were teenagers, and our parents always said we were their twin souls. But even as children, I could see the darkness lurking behind Victoria's perfect smile. While I was praised for my kindness and academic achievements, Victoria learned early that she could manipulate situations to her advantage. She would break something and blame me. She would lie to our parents about completing her homework while copying mine. She would steal my toys and claim they were gifts she received. But every time I tried to tell our parents the truth, Victoria would cry those crocodile tears and play the victim so convincingly that I ended up being the one in trouble. Our parents, Robert and Catherine, were hardworking people who owned a small but successful restaurant chain. They had built their business from scratch, working 18-hour days to provide for us. They were so busy that they often missed the subtle signs of Victoria's manipulation. To them, she was their golden child, beautiful, charismatic, and seemingly perfect in every way. As we grew older, the competition between us intensified. In high school, I excelled academically and was accepted into the pre-med program at a prestigious university. I had dreams of becoming a pediatric surgeon, inspired by the countless hours I spent volunteering at the local children's hospital. Victoria, on the other hand, struggled with her grades but compensated with her social skills and stunning looks. The first major betrayal happened during my freshman year of college. I had been dating someone special, Adrian, a fellow pre-med student who shared my passion for helping others. He was kind, intelligent, and genuinely cared about making a difference in the world. We had been together for 8 months, and I was falling deeply in love with him. During spring break, I brought Adrian home to meet my family. I was so excited to introduce him to everyone, especially to show him the restaurant where I had spent countless hours helping my parents. Victoria was home from her community college for the break, and I naively thought it would be wonderful for her to meet the man I was planning to spend my life with. The moment Adrian walked into our house, I saw the predatory gleam in Victoria's eyes. She immediately turned on her charm, laughing at his jokes, touching his arm during conversations, and finding excuses to be around him constantly. She wore her tightest clothes, applied her makeup perfectly, and made sure to highlight every physical advantage she had over me. I tried to ignore the warning bells in my head. After all, this was my sister, and Adrian loved me. But Victoria was relentless. She told him stories about my childhood that made me seem awkward and nerdy. She shared embarrassing photos of me from high school. She even went so far as to lie about my personality, claiming I was possessive and jealous in relationships. By the end of the week, I could see that Adrian was looking at me differently. Victoria had planted seeds of doubt in his mind, and her constant presence and flirtation were taking their toll on our relationship. When we returned to college, Adrian became distant and cold. Within a month he broke up with me, claiming that he needed space to figure things out. I was devastated. I had lost my first love, and I suspected that Victoria was behind it, but I had no proof. I threw myself into my studies, determined to focus on my career and forget about the pain in my heart. 2 months later, I discovered the truth in the most humiliating way possible. I was scrolling through social media when I saw a photo that made my blood run cold. It was Victoria and Adrian, kissing passionately at some party, with the caption, "So happy with my amazing boyfriend." The betrayal cut deeper than any physical wound could have. My own sister had deliberately destroyed my relationship and stolen the man I loved. When I confronted her over the phone, she did not even have the decency to deny it. "Oh, Elena," she said with fake sympathy dripping from her voice. "I am so sorry you had to find out this way. Adrian and I just could not help ourselves. We have this incredible connection. And he told me he never felt this way about anyone before, not even you." Her words were like poison arrows. each one designed to cause maximum damage. She continued. He said that being with you made him realize what he was missing. I guess some people are just meant to be together, and others are meant to be alone. I hung up the phone and cried for hours. But this was only the beginning of Victoria's systematic campaign to destroy my life. Over the next few years, as I continued my medical studies, Victoria made sure to interfere with every aspect of my life. She would call my professors pretending to be me, making bizarre requests that made me look unprofessional. She created fake social media accounts and spread rumors about me to my classmates. She even went so far as to contact the children's hospital where I volunteered, and claimed that I had been inappropriate with the young patients. Each attack was carefully calculated to damage my reputation without leaving obvious fingerprints leading back to her. She was smart enough to cover her tracks, and manipulative enough to make it seem like I was just paranoid or jealous of her success. Meanwhile, Victoria's relationship with our parents grew stronger. She had dropped out of college and convinced our father to let her work at the family restaurant. She claimed she wanted to learn the business from the ground up and eventually take over the family legacy. Our parents were thrilled to have one of their daughters showing interest in their life's work. What they did not know was that Victoria was slowly poisoning them against me. During family dinners, she would make subtle comments about how I had become different since going to medical school. She claimed I was arrogant and looked down on the family business. She told them that I had said cruel things about their restaurant, calling it beneath me, and claiming I was embarrassed by my working-class roots. None of this was true, but Victoria was a master manipulator. She would plant these lies when I was not around to defend myself, and by the time I came home for holidays, the damage was already done. My parents started treating me differently, as if I had betrayed everything they had worked for. The situation became even worse when Victoria convinced our parents to make her the official manager of their flagship restaurant. She claimed she had revolutionary ideas that would modernize the business and increase profits. Our parents, eager to see their daughter succeed and wanting to retire comfortably, agreed to give her more responsibility and a significant salary increase. What happened next still makes my blood boil with rage. Victoria began systematically stealing from our parents' business. She created fake vendor accounts and funneled money into her personal bank accounts. She inflated expenses, skimmed cash from the registers, and even sold equipment and claimed it was stolen or broken. But the most devastating part was how she covered her tracks. Every time money went missing or financial discrepancies appeared, Victoria would blame the other employees. She fired several long-term staff members who had been with our parents for years, claiming they were stealing or being lazy. These were people who had helped build the business and were like family to us. Our parents trusted Victoria completely, so they believed her accusations. They were heartbroken to think that their loyal employees had betrayed them, but they stood by their daughter's decisions. The restaurant's atmosphere became toxic, with remaining employees walking on eggshells and fearing for their jobs. During this time, I was completing my medical residency and working 90-hour weeks. I was exhausted, stressed, and barely had time to keep up with family news. When I did come home, Victoria made sure to schedule important family meetings when I could not attend, further isolating me from our parents' decision-making process. She also made sure that my few visits home were unpleasant. She would invite Adrian over for family dinners, forcing me to watch them together. She would make passive-aggressive comments about my career choice, suggesting that I was selfish for pursuing medicine instead of helping with the family business. She even convinced our parents that my medical school loans were irresponsible and that I should have chosen a more practical career. The final blow came during my last year of residency. I received a call from my mother, and I could hear the disappointment and hurt in her voice. "Elena," she said, "we need to talk about your trust fund." I was confused. "What trust fund, Mom?" "Do not play innocent with me," she replied coldly. "The college fund your father and I set up for you and Victoria. Victoria told us that you accessed it without permission and used the money for something other than education." My heart stopped. I had never accessed any trust fund. In fact, I did not even know one existed. All my medical school expenses had been covered by loans and scholarships. "Mom, I promise you, I have never touched any trust fund. I did not even know it existed." Can you please check the records and see exactly what happened? There was a long pause before my mother spoke again. Elena, the records show that you withdrew $50,000 last year and used it for personal expenses. Victoria showed us the bank statements and the withdrawal forms with your signature. I felt like the world was spinning around me. Victoria had not just stolen money from our parents' business. She had stolen from my trust fund and forged my signature to do it. Then she had convinced our parents that I was the thief. Mom, please, you have to believe me. I would never steal from you and Dad. Can we please meet in person and go through these documents together? But my mother's voice was ice cold. Elena, I am so disappointed in you. Your father and I worked so hard to provide for your education. And this is how you repay us? By lying to our faces and stealing from your own family. That conversation ended with my mother hanging up on me. And it was the last time we spoke for over a year. I was devastated beyond words. My own sister had turned my parents against me, stolen my identity, and destroyed every relationship I held dear. I felt completely alone in the world, with no one to turn to and no way to prove my innocence. But Victoria was not done with me yet. A few months later, I was contacted by the medical board. Someone had filed a complaint against me, claiming that I had been selling prescription medications illegally and had been involved in insurance fraud. The accusations were completely false, but they triggered a full investigation that threatened to destroy my medical career before it even began. The investigation was humiliating and terrifying. I had to hire a lawyer, provide extensive documentation of all my activities, and endure interviews with investigators who treated me like a criminal. The stress was so overwhelming that I developed anxiety attacks and had trouble sleeping. During this nightmare, I received a call from an unexpected source, Patricia, one of the longtime employees who had been fired from our parents' restaurant. She asked to meet with me privately, saying she had important information about Victoria. We met at a coffee shop far from our hometown, and Patricia's first words changed everything. Elena, I know you did not steal from your parents, because I know who did. Patricia explained that she had suspected Victoria of stealing for months before she was fired. She had noticed discrepancies in the books, mysterious vendor payments, and cash shortages that always seemed to happen when Victoria was working alone. But when she tried to bring her concerns to our parents, Victoria had immediately accused her of theft and had her fired. I could not prove it at the time, Patricia said, but I have been doing my own investigation since then. I have connections with some of the vendors, and I discovered that several of the companies Victoria claimed to be paying do not actually exist. She created fake businesses and has been transferring money to accounts she controls. Patricia handed me a folder filled with documents, bank records, fake invoices, and copies of checks made out to non-existent companies. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. There is more, Patricia continued. I also found out that Victoria has been using your personal information to open credit cards and take out loans. She has been destroying your credit rating while building up debt in your name. I stared at the documents in shock. Victoria had not just stolen my trust fund money. She had committed full-scale identity theft and fraud. She had been living a lavish lifestyle while destroying my financial future and reputation. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. Elena, there is something else you need to know about Victoria and Adrian, Patricia said gently. Their relationship is not what it seems. She explained that Victoria had been bragging to some of the restaurant staff about how she won Adrian away from me. But according to Patricia's sources, Victoria had used far more sinister methods than simple seduction. She drugged him, Patricia said quietly. At the party where she first got him alone, she put something in his drink. She took compromising photos of him and used them to blackmail him into dating her. He is not with her by choice, he is trapped. The room seemed to spin around me as I processed this information. Victoria had not just stolen my boyfriend. She had sexually assaulted him and was using blackmail to control him. Adrian was as much a victim as I was. Armed with this information, I knew it was time to take action. But I also knew that I had to be strategic. Victoria was cunning and manipulative, and if I confronted her directly, she would find a way to turn the situation to her advantage. I needed to gather more evidence and build an airtight case before making my move. Over the next several months, I worked with Patricia and a private investigator to build a comprehensive file on Victoria's crimes. We documented the identity theft, the embezzlement from the restaurant, the forged signatures on the trust fund withdrawal, and even the blackmail scheme involving Adrian. We also discovered that Victoria had been planning an even more devastating betrayal. She had been in contact with a large restaurant chain that was interested in buying our parents' business. She had been providing them with confidential financial information and was planning to sell the restaurants without our parents' knowledge, keeping the profits for herself. The depth of her betrayal was staggering. She had spent years systematically destroying our family from the inside, stealing our money, ruining my reputation, and planning to leave our parents with nothing. But I was not going to let her get away with it. The first step in my revenge plan was to contact Adrian privately. Using the evidence Patricia had gathered, I was able to prove to him that I knew about the blackmail. I arranged to meet him at a neutral location, and when I showed him the evidence, he broke down in tears. "Elena, I am so sorry," he said, his voice shaking with emotion. "I wanted to tell you the truth so many times, but Victoria threatened to destroy my career and my family if I said anything. She has photos and videos that she claims show me doing things I do not even remember doing." Adrian explained that Victoria had been controlling every aspect of his life for years. She monitored his communications, isolated him from his friends and family, and used the blackmail material to force him to participate in her schemes against me. "She made me call your professors and say those things about you," he confessed. "She forced me to spread rumors and lie to people about your character. I hated every second of it, but I was terrified of what she would do if I refused." Hearing this confirmation of Victoria's manipulation made my resolve even stronger. She had not just hurt me. She had destroyed multiple lives and traumatized an innocent person. It was time for her to face the consequences of her actions. The next step was to approach our parents with the evidence. I knew this would be difficult, as Victoria had spent years poisoning them against me. But I hoped that the overwhelming proof of her crimes would open their eyes. I arranged to meet them at the restaurant during a quiet afternoon. I brought Patricia with me as a witness, along with copies of all the evidence we had gathered. When I walked into the restaurant, I could see the disappointment and anger in our parents' eyes, but I was determined to present the truth. "Mom, Dad," I began, "I know you believe that I have betrayed this family, but I need you to look at this evidence with an open mind. Victoria has been lying to you for years, and she has committed serious crimes against all of us." I methodically presented each piece of evidence: the fake vendor accounts, the forged trust fund withdrawal, the identity theft, and the planned sale of their businesses. Our parents' expressions changed from skepticism to shock to horror as they realized the extent of Victoria's betrayal. Our father was the first to speak, his voice barely above a whisper. "Are you telling me that Victoria has been stealing from us this entire time? That she fired our loyal employees to cover her tracks?" "Yes, Dad," I replied gently. "She has stolen over $200,000 from the business, and she was planning to sell your restaurants without your knowledge." Our mother began to cry as the full impact of the situation hit her. "But Elena, if this is all true, then that means we have been wrong about you this whole time. We accused you of stealing when you were innocent, and we believed Victoria's lies about you." "I forgive you, Mom," I said, reaching out to take her hand. "Victoria is very good at manipulation, and she spent years building these lies. But now we know the truth, and we can make sure she pays for what she has done." The confrontation with Victoria happened the next day. Our parents called her to the restaurant and asked her to explain the evidence we had presented. I watched from the office as Victoria walked in, confident and smiling, completely unaware that her world was about to collapse. When our father presented the bank records and fake invoices, Victoria's face went through a range of emotions: confusion, denial, anger, and finally, desperate calculation. She tried to lie her way out of the situation, claiming that someone had framed her or that the documents were fabricated. But the evidence was too overwhelming and detailed. When our father showed her the copies of her own handwriting on the fake invoices and the bank surveillance footage of her making the fraudulent transactions, Victoria's facade finally cracked. "You do not understand," she said, her voice becoming shrill and desperate. I was trying to modernize the business. I was making investments that would pay off in the long run. Elena has been trying to turn you against me because she is jealous of my success. But our parents were no longer buying her lies. Our mother looked at Victoria with a mixture of heartbreak and disgust. Victoria, you have stolen from us, lied to us, and destroyed our trust in our own employees. You have turned us against Elena with your lies, and you have committed crimes that could send you to prison. How could you do this to your own family? Victoria's response revealed the true depth of her narcissism and cruelty. Instead of showing remorse or asking for forgiveness, she launched into a vicious attack on everyone in the room. You want to know the truth? She screamed. I deserve everything I took. I have spent years watching Elena get praised for her precious medical career, while I did all the real work here. You have always loved her more than me, and I was just taking what should have been mine. She turned to me with pure hatred in her eyes. And you, Elena, you think you are so perfect with your doctor degree and your moral superiority. But you are weak and pathetic, and Adrian told me he never really loved you anyway. He said you were boring and plain, and that being with me was like finally waking up from a nightmare. Even knowing that her words were lies designed to hurt me, they still stung. But I had come too far to let Victoria's manipulation affect me now. Victoria, I said calmly, Adrian already told me the truth about how you have been blackmailing him. The police are very interested in hearing about your sexual assault and extortion charges. The color drained from Victoria's face as she realized that her deepest secret had been exposed. She tried to deny it, but I continued. We also know about your plan to sell Mom and Dad's restaurants without their knowledge. Industrial espionage and fraud are serious federal crimes, Victoria. You are looking at decades in prison. Victoria looked around the room desperately, searching for any ally or escape route. But there was nowhere to run, and no one left to manipulate. This is not over, she said, her voice low and threatening. You think you have won, but I will destroy all of you. I know secrets about this family that would ruin everyone. Our father stood up, his voice filled with a quiet authority I had never heard before. Victoria, you are no longer welcome in this restaurant or in our home. We are pressing charges for theft, fraud, and identity theft. You have 1 hour to remove your personal belongings from the office, and then you are banned from this property permanently. Victoria's final tantrum was both pathetic and terrifying. She screamed obscenities, threw papers around the office, and threatened to expose family secrets that did not even exist. When security finally escorted her from the building, she was still shrieking threats and accusations. But her reign of terror was finally over. The legal consequences for Victoria were severe and swift. The evidence we had gathered was so comprehensive that prosecutors were able to file multiple felony charges: grand theft, identity theft, fraud, forgery, extortion, and sexual assault. Victoria's defense attorney tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the case against her was airtight. During the trial, more victims came forward. Other employees from the restaurant testified about Victoria's workplace harassment and retaliation. Former classmates shared stories of her bullying and manipulation going back to high school. Even Adrian testified about the blackmail and sexual assault, which took tremendous courage given the intimate nature of the crimes. The judge was clearly disgusted by the scope and cruelty of Victoria's crimes. During sentencing, he said that he had rarely seen such a calculated and prolonged campaign of abuse against family members and innocent victims. Victoria was sentenced to 12 years in prison for the financial crimes, with additional consecutive sentences for the sexual assault and blackmail charges. She was also ordered to pay full restitution to our parents, to me for the identity theft, and to the wrongfully terminated employees. But the most satisfying part of her downfall was watching her narcissistic facade crumble completely. During the trial, Victoria tried to maintain her innocent victim act, but as the evidence mounted and her lies were exposed one by one, she became increasingly unhinged. By the time of her sentencing, she was screaming at the judge, blaming everyone else for her crimes, and claiming that she was being persecuted for being successful. The transformation from charming manipulator to raging narcissist was complete, and everyone in the courtroom could see her true nature. The aftermath of Victoria's conviction was a time of healing and rebuilding for our family. Our parents were devastated by the betrayal, but also relieved to finally know the truth. They spent months apologizing to me for believing Victoria's lies, and for not seeing through her manipulation. "Elena," our mother said during one of our healing conversations, "we failed you as parents. We should have seen what Victoria was doing, and we should have protected you from her attacks." "Mom, Victoria fooled everyone," I replied. "She is a master manipulator who spent years perfecting her lies. The important thing is that we know the truth now, and we can move forward as a family." Rebuilding the restaurant business was challenging but rewarding. Several of the wrongfully terminated employees returned, and we implemented new financial controls to prevent future fraud. Our parents were able to recover most of the stolen money through insurance and Victoria's restitution payments. Adrian and I had many long conversations about what Victoria had done to both of us. The trauma of her manipulation and abuse had affected him deeply, and he was working with a therapist to process his experiences. While we both acknowledged the love we had once shared, we ultimately decided that too much damage had been done to rebuild our romantic relationship. "Elena," he said during one of our final conversations, "what Victoria did to us was terrible, but in a strange way, it showed me how strong and principled you are. You could have given up or sought petty revenge, but instead you fought for justice and truth. I have tremendous respect for the person you have become." Adrian moved to another city to start fresh, and we parted as friends with mutual respect and understanding. While our romantic relationship could not be salvaged, we had both gained closure and peace. As for my medical career, the investigation that Victoria had triggered was quickly resolved once the truth came out. The medical board issued a formal apology for the investigation, and noted that the complaints had been filed maliciously by a family member with a history of fraud and deception. I completed my residency with honors, and was accepted into a prestigious pediatric surgery fellowship. My dream of helping children was finally becoming a reality, and I knew that the struggles I had endured had made me a stronger and more compassionate doctor. The most profound change was in my relationship with my parents. The shared trauma of Victoria's betrayal had brought us closer together than we had ever been. They now understood the sacrifices I had made to pursue my medical career, and I gained a deeper appreciation for the hard work and dedication they had put into building their business. "You know, Elena," our father said one evening as we worked together in the restaurant, "I always worried that your medical career would take you away from the family. But watching how you handled this situation with Victoria showed me that family values are not about what job you choose. They are about how you treat the people you love." Victoria's imprisonment was not the end of her attempts to cause harm, but her power to hurt us was greatly diminished. She tried to file frivolous lawsuits from prison, attempted to contact family members with manipulative letters, and even convinced other inmates to make threatening phone calls on her behalf. But we were prepared for her continued attempts at manipulation. We had learned to recognize her patterns, to document her harassment, and to respond with legal action when necessary. Each failed attempt at revenge only added to her legal troubles and extended her time in prison. The most satisfying moment came 2 years after her conviction, when I received notification that Victoria had been denied parole. The parole board cited her complete lack of remorse, her continued attempts to manipulate and harass victims, and her failure to take responsibility for her crimes. The board finds that the defendant continues to pose a significant threat to public safety and to the victims of her crimes, the notification read. Her conduct while incarcerated demonstrates a pattern of antisocial behavior and manipulation that indicates she has not been rehabilitated. Victoria would serve her full sentence, with no early release and no opportunity to continue her campaign of revenge against our family. 5 years have passed since Victoria's conviction, and my life has transformed in ways I never could have imagined. I am now a successful pediatric surgeon, saving children's lives and making a difference in the world exactly as I had always dreamed. Our family restaurant business has grown and prospered under honest management. We have opened 2 new locations and have become known throughout the region for our commitment to quality and integrity. Several of the employees who were wrongfully terminated by Victoria have returned and now hold management positions in the expanded business. Most importantly, I have learned that true strength comes not from avoiding betrayal and hardship, but from how we respond when faced with our greatest challenges. Victoria's systematic campaign to destroy my life ultimately made me a stronger, more resilient person. I met someone new, Dr. Samuel Rodriguez, a fellow pediatric surgeon who shares my passion for helping children. Our relationship is built on honesty, mutual respect, and genuine love. He knows my entire story with Victoria, and his support and understanding have helped me heal from the trauma of her betrayal. When Samuel proposed to me last month, I realized that Victoria's attempts to destroy my capacity for love and trust had ultimately failed. She had stolen years of my life and caused tremendous pain. But she had not been able to steal my future or my ability to find happiness. As I write this story, Victoria still has 4 years remaining on her prison sentence. She continues to send manipulative letters trying to convince family members that she has changed and deserves forgiveness. But we have learned to recognize her patterns. And we know that true change requires genuine remorse and accountability, qualities that Victoria has never demonstrated. Sometimes I wonder what our lives would have been like if Victoria had chosen a different path. If she had used her intelligence and charisma for good instead of evil. If she had supported our family instead of trying to destroy it. If she had been the sister I always hoped she could be. But I have learned that we cannot change other people, especially those who refuse to change themselves. All we can do is protect ourselves and our loved ones, seek justice when we are wronged, and build the best life possible despite the obstacles placed in our path. Victoria thought she could destroy me, but instead she made me stronger. She thought she could steal my future, but instead she taught me to value what truly matters. She thought she could break our family apart, but instead she brought us closer together than we had ever been. In the end, karma did not just find Victoria. It completely dismantled the false life she had built through lies and manipulation. Every crime she committed, every person she hurt, every lie she told eventually came back to destroy her. The sister who thought she could steal everything ended up losing everything, while the family she tried to destroy emerged stronger and more united than ever. That is the power of truth and justice. That is the price of betrayal. And that is why, no matter how dark things may seem, we must never give up fighting for what is right. If you enjoyed this story of betrayal and revenge, make sure to subscribe to Revenge Janet for more shocking tales of karma and justice. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a story, and let me know in the comments what you thought about Victoria's ultimate downfall. Remember, karma always finds a way, and truth always wins in the end. See you in the next story.